Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Division of Information Technology's weekly webinar series. I'm Laura Niemeyer, the Web 2.0 specialist in the Learning Technologies group, and today we are happy to be joined by Dr. Sabrina Kramer, the Assistant Director in the Center for Teaching Excellence here at University of Maryland. She'll be sharing how to take advantage of the suite of free Google Apps tools. And if you have any questions throughout, feel free to type them into the chat area on the lower left-hand side of your screen, or just raise your hand to speak. Welcome, Sabrina. We are happy to have you here today.
There we go. Sorry, had to find the talk lock button. I want to thank you for coming, and just to give you a heads up that I have a lot of time at the very end to go through any specific examples you may have, and I can step you through that, because most of the talk is going to be focused on how or why you might use Google Apps and how you might use that in your classroom, and a little bit less on exactly how you step through and set up a Google site. But I can help you with that at the end if you have any specific examples you want to go through. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got a basic presentation, and then I'll be showing you some web pages. All right. So what are Google Apps, and why should you care about them? So one of the underlying basics that people have come into terms with is that all the students are now have TERP mail accounts, which is all powered underneath by Google. So they by default have Google accounts, which makes using all the Google apps a lot easier. Google Docs allows for the simultaneous editing and sharing of documents, which is something we can't directly do with the Campus Pack system. So with the Campus Pack wiki setup, two people can't edit the same wiki at the exact same time. With Google Apps, you're literally able to edit the same document at the exact same time. So that's one of the major advantages. Things are kept in the cloud, so they're not local, so you don't have to worry about whose version is saved on which computer. So you have sharing and editing of documents, and Google actually allows you to be very precise about what you share out and who has access to them, who can view them, and who can actually edit them. So you can very strongly control both the access and the editing rights, which is important within, say, for instance, you've got a document that one group is working on that you want the rest of the class to be able to see but not edit. So that's one of the major advantages. So you can do file sharing, presentations, web pages, allows for peer review. You can post, say, YouTube videos of a performance of some sort, allow for commenting, and feel secure in that the only people able to actually access the site is the people you've specifically allowed to be able to access it. Any questions so far? Okay. So how might you use this in your own classroom? Very briefly, you can use these in group projects, like I mentioned. So it's very nice, for instance, if you have 3 or 4 students that are working on some sort of group presentation or group project, which allows for file transfers. Maybe you have some sort of group blog. Maybe they're doing a common video or a common website, and this allows them to be able to collaborate wherever they are. They don't have to install any programs. They don't have to own Microsoft Office. So you can do that. You can collect data in real time and calculate averages. So one of the more interesting examples I've seen in a classroom is where the class is running a in-class simulation. So each group of students is running an active simulation, so they're getting slightly different numbers. And the professor wanted to show the whole class trend. So he posted a link to the Google document. It's basically a spreadsheet that was set up in advance into Elm, so we can control who has access to it. And then the students went in, and as they got their data, they posted it to the spreadsheet, and it auto-calculated the class average. So they could see the data trend as it was coming in. So it's used for labs and class simulations. Again, the biggest thing is that you actually have simultaneous editing And again, the students already have Turtmail accounts. They have access to this already. You can use Google Sites as an alternative to Blackboard for a course web page. It does not have, and I'll go over this at the end, but they do not have any integration with UMeg at all. But it might be some alternative that you find a little less confining than, say, Blackboard, if that's what you choose. It has full integration of all the different Google tools, including Google Calendar. And one of the more important things that you're able to do is you can use templates. This is important if, say, you make an assignment and you want the students to have these 5 sections. Well, you just make your template with these 5 sections, make it public, and have the students use your template. The only downside is Google doesn't allow you to specifically share out your template to only a certain select set of people, so you're basically sharing it out with the world. Good and bad. That also means there are a lot of templates available out there for you to start with. So what does Google Docs look like? So these are some screenshots, and then in a little bit I'll actually move over to showing you what it looks like on my screen. So this is just a word processor. It looks kind of like Word, a little stripped down. This is a set of cases that I set up for our CTE workshop that was a week ago. So basically the same idea. It takes a little bit of getting used to if you've never used Google Apps before. But again, it's got full integration on the different Google tools. So you can pull in spreadsheets, you can pull in presentations, you can pull in images, you can pull in calendars, whatever you want to do. And it allows you to basically set up, like for instance, you have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, if that's the way you want to do the encoding, and then define that later. And I'll show you this in the next slide, but also if you take a look here, you can barely see it. Let's see if I can draw, basically. So if you take a look there, it actually says 2 other viewers. So it'll tell you who's logged in any given time to a particular document. And if they've got their cursor on the screen, which I'll show you in a second, it'll show you where they are on the screen and exactly what they're doing. So that can be helpful when multiple people are sitting in the same room editing the same document, so you can see what they're working on, what changes are being made. So if we move on to spreadsheet, I have the forethought text with the arrow in advance. You can see that, again, there's 2 other viewers here. So in this case, the blue square was mine where I clicked. And then we've got 2 other viewers. And if you clicked on here, it would allow you to basically see who they were logged in as. And it's cut off the screen, but there's also an option over here to do commenting. So you can basically have a common document where you're reviewing it amongst several different people, say amongst colleagues. And then comments can be set up to the side as you're going through that review. And that's another option. This is what the spreadsheet looks like. It should look fairly similar to Microsoft Excel, not quite the same idea-ish, and it's a very similar interface. There's also Google Drawing. So most people don't know if this even exists. You can do different drawing, word art, painting, various different things, insert that into your documents. You can also do forms, which is what you're looking at here. So I just made up a generic homework quiz. You can use this in your course. So students, this basically acts kind of like SurveyMonkey, but what happens is students would just, enter their information, enter their name, and you'll be able to record that in a spreadsheet later. So you can do quizzes, you can do surveys, basic things like this. You can integrate this into all the other Google tools, including Google Docs and Google Sites, which I'll show you in a minute. These are what the results will look like on the other end. So after your students have filled out their form, you can see the different questions that I asked, and you can see that here, and the timestamp at which they filled it out, which is very useful. So there's Google Forms, and then Google Sites, which I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time on. I've made some examples, and this is where I'm actually going to switch over to working on. We're going to switch over to working on a web browser. My only caveat here, and you're welcome to take a look at these Google Sites afterwards, is that I actually messed up and put the first and the last URL as the same. So my portfolio is a slightly different URL, and I'll happily give that out to you guys after the webinar or during the webinar, but I accidentally pasted it in twice. So we're going to switch over to the web, and let's see how well this works. Hopefully you have my web browser on your screen. This is in Firefox, just FYI. So this is one of the examples that are up there. So you might be able to use this in your class, for instance, where students are doing multimedia presentations. What I've done is basically take a historical character, Ada Lovelace, go in and create Google Sites. So it's basically a website, excuse me, which allows for full integration, again, of a bunch of their different tools, but because people make templates, there are a lot of free templates available, including one you could make for your own class. So you can have the biography, a platform. This is you know, if, for instance, if Ada Lovelace was running for a current political office, what would it look like? It also allows for a discussion board. So this integrates right into Google Forums, so like a Google Moderator. Contact forms. It also has a full integration with Google Maps. And somewhere along here, it also allows for basically a blog-like structure. Now, for instance, if you wanted something where you would allow for commenting, so your students wanted to comment on each other's website, you can allow that at the bottom where students are able to include that. This is one example. One of the other examples I came up with was one of the faculty I was working with was trying to use Google Moderator in a class and found it extremely restrictive in its ability to allow students to ask to answer questions, basically. Google Moderator was set up to be able to ask the moderator questions, and she wanted it so that the students could basically provide answers that were not character dependent, which restricts you from, which is one of the major restrictions with something like Twitter. So she was using Google Moderator to differing effectiveness. So this is a sample I made up where you might be able to use something like Google Sites. So I set it up so that there's basically a group web page with a specific assignment. And then this allows them to go log in and actually post analysis to this page where you might be able to go in by group and be able to grade this later or pull it up from directly from Google Sites during class to look at it. So that's one option. This is where I basically made a whole new course website, and this is just for a hypothetical course. The YouTube video is actually from the Clarice Smith Performing Arts Center, but I set it up so you've got a project page, different group members, and again, you can set this up so that only members of this particular group are able to access this particular page, or the whole class, or you know, obviously you can change this throughout the course, can view it but can't actually modify it. I set up a file exchange, so if I was logged in, you'd actually be able to see that, and I'll show you in a second. Then just a standard sitemap, which does not work so well with his background. But this is just an example of how you might be able to set up your own Google site and replace parts of Blackboard with it. Again, it doesn't have any great integration at all. That's one of the major problems. This is an e-portfolio I set up for some of our grad students. So what I did is set up a generic e-portfolio. Based on this, I actually made a template, which is freely available to anyone who's interested, to be able to go in and take this web page and replace it with their own information. But this is an example of what a teaching portfolio might look like if it was based on Google Sites. This is me. Teaching philosophy. You're able to basically include files. So you can attach files, either attach it to the bottom of the actual page, or you can link in files that you already have in Google Documents. Other information. This actually came to me this morning. This is a conference that CTU was invited to go to. And just giving an example of how people are using Google Sites. This is completely built on Google Sites, and you see that in the URL right there, Google Sites. And this is a conference that's being held in May at Shenandoah University, and they've used Google Sites to build their particular conference website. So let's see, to show you what it looks like from the designer's end. Let's see what we can do about that.
Sabrina, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure. Sorry, the Wimba screen went off, and I don't see if people are asking questions.
Oh, no, that's okay. No questions have come through on the chat pod yet. I'm just curious, when you're making these sites, how long would you say, how long did you spend on maybe that Ada Lovelace site that you made?
Considering there's not a lot of content in it, so if you looked really closely, the words weren't actual, they were all in Latin. They were Latin filler words. Maybe 10 minutes making that, and it's directly from a template. Obviously, if you have your own content, it'll take a little bit longer to build what you want and set up the exact sharing with the different individuals and different groups. But the thing is, when you're working with Campus Pack and Blackboard, and you're setting up specific groups within Blackboard, you're going to end up doing something kind of similar. But yeah, the Ada one, that one took the least amount of time. It was maybe 10 minutes max. The one where the ePortfolio, where I was actually uploading my information and fixing formatting between Microsoft Word and Google Sites, that maybe took me 30, 40 minutes. Something like that, but that's because I already had all the content written.
Wow, that's great.
Were there any other questions? Okay. So just give me an idea. This is what it looks like when you're actually logged in. And these are just some different Google documents I have. And these are the different ones I was talking about, including the template that I shared out. So if you guys are interested, you can actually make your own Google site. Search for UNCP CTE, and that'll get you my Google template that you can use. And this is what it looks like when you go in to edit. So if you're logged in, you can actually just go in, create new pages, and then edit everything you see on the screen. All right. So any questions about Google Sites? And again, at the end, I'll be happy to go through any examples you guys might want me to go through.
Sabrina.
Yeah, hey, Cynthia.
Hey, on the one that you received for the conference, I noticed that it had the registration on the left sidebar. When you go, like, suppose you want to register for that conference, will you still be within Google Documents of some sort, or will that take you then to another site where you had to set up a registration?
Oh, it depends on how they did it. I didn't look and see, but you could have done either. So, for instance, we work with SurveyMonkey a lot, and SurveyMonkey allows you to basically embed into a website. And you could have embedded SurveyMonkey into the website and then pull your data out from SurveyMonkey. Or you could embed like a form, like a Google form, and that'll feed it directly into a spreadsheet. So you could do either. Basically, Google Sites allows you to directly access the HTML, which I didn't show you. And you can insert anything that uses what's called an iframe, which includes YouTube, Google Calendar, SurveyMonkey uses iframes, a bunch of different things uses iframes. And any of that you can directly access. You can access the HTML directly. So I don't know which way they did it, but they could have done it either way. Use something like Google Form, and then that will take the data and basically put it into a spreadsheet for you that you can go ahead and access and put the timestamp on it, or it could be something embedded like SurveyMonkey or something like that. So it's whichever way you want to do it. It allows you the flexibility to do that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to go on really quick and talk about some of the differences between using some of the Google products versus something like Microsoft Office. Basically, one of the biggest things is it's in the cloud, so it's out there on the Google server. So you have literally real-time collaboration. So we've had grad students who are working on the same project and be in different places. So they just log into Google Documents, pull up a chat window because you have Google Chat as well, or they also pull up the comment on the right side of the document and start editing the document together and showing comments. You can see where the different cursors are. So real time. It doesn't require you buying any products. Students already have Google accounts, and you get very good integration with all the many things that are Google out there. Again, with the iframes, including YouTube, Vimeo, SurveyMonkey, all these things are easily integrated into the Google apps. It works on mobile devices, so it basically has an alternate style sheet, which allows it to work on mobile devices. And again, it's not stored locally, so you don't have to worry about whose version is what. Now, the downside with that is if you were working with Campus Pack Wiki, you could see precisely who edited it which time. And if someone messed something up, you can always step back and say, well, this last person messed up our wiki, so we're going to undo the last thing they did. That doesn't really happen with Google Apps. Once you've made the changes, it auto-saves for you all the time. So once you've made the changes, you've made the changes. And it's basically one copy for the entire group of people sharing it. So that's one of the big downsides. So again, versus Blackboard, you would have to add your students manually to any Google app. So you would have to get their email address and then manually add it to the Google Apps. Or you can set it up so that anyone with the URL can access and edit whatever document you're working on, and then paste that URL in Elm, so they have to log in to actually get to it. So that's how you can restrict access. You can set it with the permissions. You can set it up so that anyone in the whole wide world can search for it and get to it and find it. So that's basically public access. You can have public access by the URL, so only those people with the URL can find it. No one's able to search for it, or you can only have access with specified email addresses, and you can do any of those. You can, in theory, do grades or gradebook with Google Sites, but it's actually much easier to do it with Blackboard. Sometimes students find that working with Google Apps is a little bit easier and a little bit more intuitive than working with Elms and Campus Pack. And it has a much better integration with a lot of these other tools that Google has their hands in that I already mentioned. Again, and they might be more comfortable with this platform that they used it before. Allows for full integration with Google Calendar, which doesn't sound like a lot, but one of the few things that students really, or I've seen in a bunch of different courses, students really like is the ability to see upcoming assignments on a calendar. And while Blackboard has a calendar, almost no one knows how to figure out how to use it, especially faculty. So it's not the most user-friendly thing in the world. So if you run Google Calendar, students can subscribe to it, and they can see it come up in their own calendar when things are due and when there's notifications. It can also have full integration into whatever website or whatever else that you might be working with. So that's one of the other advantages is you can have a calendar available for students to let them know when they have things to turn in, what topics are going to be discussed in class, when they're going on different assignments, anything like that. And students find that very helpful from what I've seen. So quick summary, Google Apps allows literally for real-time sharing, which you can't do with a bunch of the other tools I talked about, specifically the Campus Pack Wiki. You can have very specific editing and viewing privileges for individuals and groups. Has very good integration with other Google and Internet resources. And then, very importantly, you can make a template and share it out with your students so they have a starting place for assignments. But the downside is you have no integration with Aries or other UMG systems, so or UMeg. I meant to put UMeg. So grading's on your own. So just to give you an idea what's out there, I wanted to allow you guys to either have questions or I can go through specific examples. I have a few different things that are set up in Google Docs that I can show you how to set up a Google site, a Google spreadsheet, any of these different things, and I'd be happy to do that. So if you guys have any requests, I'd be happy to show you how to do that real quick.
I'd be interested in the spreadsheet.
How come I know you were going to ask that? Cynthia works with me over in CT, which is what everyone else is missing. All right, so I'm going to switch over to my web browser and show you how to go through and set up that type of spreadsheet. Any other requests? Okay. All right. So I'm hoping everyone is seeing my screen. Here's a sample spreadsheet. So this is basically where I set it up similar to what I indicated. Todd Cook is the one who uses this in his class, where basically you have different groups, and then they're entering data in live time. So, for instance, I can log in the information, and then I pre-set up a chart. That's not so useful, but anyway, and you can track the class as a whole or as a group. So that's what it might look like. If you're going to set it up yourself, oh, and I've got one more sample. This one's one of the cooler examples of what you can do with Google. It's got a map integration, so you can actually do something like population, and it maps it based on the density you give it, and it can pull up a full U.S. map. So that's actually kind of cool. But if you go in, you would just go to Create, and then the example we're using is a spreadsheet, and it just gives you a blank spreadsheet. But for my example, we're using different groups. So we'd have 1, 2, and it's smart enough to figure out what I'm doing. We would have your data points, so data point 1, I can't type, data point 2, data point 3, we would enter in some data, and then just like in Excel, you basically go in, select your data, where's my graph? I can never remember where everything is in here. So you create a chart, based on your data, actually switch my columns and my rows, and then you can choose, just like you would in Excel, what type of charts you want. So this is set, they auto-select an area based on the data I give it, but you can also select as a line. This is what I had up before. I would insert it into your chart, into your sheet. And you can move that around. I find it easier to move it to its own sheet. But there we go. And here's our two data sets. So as people would be entering the information, let's go back. During class, you could actually see that growing. That's an example of how you might be able to use it in your course. Here's my example entitled spreadsheet. Any questions about that part? If you wanted to go in and set sharing privileges, all of the Google apps have this big blue share button in the top right. So right now I have it set to private. What that means is only the people I specifically allow access would have access. So I could type in, and I'm going to cheat because I know Cynthia's email. I'll use CTE. It's a lot easier if you have a Google account to use. I'm already listed. We use CTE's Google account. CTE at Gmail. There we go. So basically when I do this, it'll send a notification that I've shared this out, and I can set it to either edit or view. The other option is you can set this so that people with the link, anyone with the link can access, and then you can also allow them to edit as well. Most people wouldn't want any of these documents to be completely public as well as editable. That means anyone out there can find it as well as edit it. So most people are usually choosing between these two options. you see, you can change their privileges later on as well. Any other questions about this? Any other examples you might want me to go through? Anyone? Okay. Well, if you're interested in the future, feel free to contact me. My information is on the screen to begin with, or you can find me off of the CTE website. I don't know if Lauren had any questions or Laura had any questions, but I'll be happy to respond to you via email if you have any other questions. I'm on campus if you want to give me a call. But these tools are very helpful, and a lot of people are coming around to using things like Google Sites. Oh, and this is a conference. So what they did for registration, I can't tell which one they're doing. Whether, they're using a Google form to answer your question. This is a Google form that they put in here. And now I'm going to attempt to switch back. All right. Okay. And I believe Lauren wanted to share some information about the innovations in teaching and learning that's come up. So thank you guys for attending. If you guys have, again, any other questions, please let me know. And I'm happy to be able to talk to you about this.
Great. Thank you so much, Sabrina. That was very, very informative. Just one final note that we'd like to remind everyone that you can register for our 6th annual Innovations in Teaching and Learning Conference. It's going to be on Thursday and Friday, April 26th and 27th, and we're co-hosting it with the Center for Teaching Excellence. So you can see Sabrina present again at that. And then if you go to the website here, you can view the program, and also that's where you can register. So once again, thanks, Sabrina. This was very informative, and we look forward to seeing everyone again. And next week we're going to be doing Getting Started with Teaching Online. So that's our topic for next week's webinar. So thanks again to everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.